Hi, I'm Jennifer Lepore, Online Education Manager here at Artists Network, and I have with me here in the studio at Artists Network TV, Liz Haywood-Sullivan. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hi, Jennifer. Nice to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome. And we've been here for the past few days working on pastel landscapes. We did believable skies, believable greens, and believable water. It's been a really intense and wonderful 3 days. So I wanted everybody out there to know a little bit more about you, Liz, and we talked a little bit about your history, but could you tell us, before you came to pastels, what is your art background, how you got started with art in general?
Just going way back to the beginning, actually grew up in a very artistic household. My dad was always drawing and sketching, and it goes even beyond that in the family. My mom's very creative, and so I just grew up in a very creative household. Then I wound up going to college. Did not think I was going to be able to actually make a living as a fine artist, which is what I really wanted to do. So I studied design at Rochester Institute of Technology, and actually wound up getting a degree in environmental design. I really enjoy 3 dimensions. And my first job out of college, turns out I worked at Xerox in the Industrial Design Human Factors department. I then moved on to working in museum exhibit design, which again is a 3-dimensional world. I've done trade show exhibits, worked as an architectural perspectivist, where I worked for an architectural firm and did perspective drawings from plans. Different things with graphic design, different types of projects as a freelancer in illustration. And then most recently, my husband and I had a graphic design business for 11 years, and we served the high-tech industry.
Oh, wow. So how did you get into pastel? I know you had mentioned in one of your videos about the magic of making something 3-dimensional on 2 dimensions. That kind of seems like your design background led you into...
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I've really never had too much of a difficulty with composition because of my education. And I love the idea of taking something that's 3-dimensional and render it on a 2-dimensional surface and then make it look 3-dimensional. I love all those little tricks of the trade, you know, to employ to do something like that. So actually, pastel kind of found me. My husband and I were taking a break from our business, and we were taking a vacation out in Taos, New Mexico, and he's a photographer as well as a designer, and so he was taking a photography class, and I needed to find a class the same week that was doing something else, and it just so happened to be a pastel class. And that's where it all started.
That's it. Yeah. True love.
Absolutely fell in love with it. I couldn't stand the medium in high school and did a little bit of it in college with figure drawing. And I think that's probably the spark of it came from figure drawing in college, because otherwise I would have never even taken the class in Taos. But it was, in college I would be working with figure drawing on brown craft paper, which was mid-tone, and would work building up the darks in charcoal. But then I would take out pastels, or I think there were probably new pastels at that point in time, and put the lights in. And I absolutely remember falling in love with painting light instead of building up the darks. I love the idea of getting the darks out of the way and then building up the lights. And that's what pastel is all about. It's like waiting until you can put that little last glint of light in. I love it.
Oh, that's so neat.
Yeah.
And I know, mentioning the darks though, but you have quite a few really intense, rich, beautiful darks in your work. It's almost like a signature of yours. Is that something that, I mean, I know you said just now getting it over with, but it seems like you really like that part too.
Well, I like the contrast, the light and dark contrast, and again, I think there's a graphic aspect to that. And I remember when I first started in '96 painting in pastel full time, it was very hard to even find a dark pastel. I actually started painting on black paper to get my darks dark enough. There really were no really good darks out there until some of the artists started making their own pastels. Diane Townsend, Terry Ludwig. Those darks have come along and really have revolutionized the business. They've pushed that end of the value scale down so that we now have a whole other range of value, and it's not, I mean it when I say I do not own a black pastel. I do not own black. I own charcoal. But all my darks are colors, and I love that rich inner layering of those dark colors. We're so fortunate to have the products out there we have today.
Mm-hmm. And with your style, do you feel that you're going in any other new directions? With your work, do you always, I don't know, do you feel comfortable with what you're doing now? Do you see a future that you want to head toward?
No, it's always evolving.
Yeah.
You know, your style is always evolving. I don't think I'll ever stop doing pastel landscapes, but I find that, again, talking about the darks and that kind of high contrast, you know, I feel like over the years, maybe I've played that out enough, and I've always had real strong darks and lights next to each other and being very graphic. And I find myself looking more towards trying to soften some of those edges and blend them a little bit more so that there's a little bit more subtlety in my work instead of knocking it over your head. I mean, that sort of subtlety, you can start to see it happening in here where I've got, you know, I don't really have a strong light against a strong dark. I'm trying to work not in such an extreme value range. And, you know, I find myself being drawn to paintings like those in museums and other artists' work that I see.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for being here with us.
Oh, thank you. It was
Such a pleasure.
It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome.